The death penalty or capital punishment has been heatedly debated since the 19th century. Those in favor of the death penalty say that it's a way to keep criminals off the street, prevent people from committing crimes, and to gain justice for the victim. But those against capital punishment make a case for overlooked evidence, revenge, and the inhumane aspects of such a punishment. Both sides present logical arguments, so it's important to look at the effectiveness, cost, and humanity of the death penalty when coming to a compromise. The old adage an eye for an eye supports the opinion in favor of the death penalty. This concept reflects the idea that one is willing to take the life of another person, then he or she deserves to lose his or her life as well. John Stuart Mill addresses this in the 19th century when he says a murderer violates his or her own right to life. Governor Huckabee supports the death penalty because its presence in use shows that some crimes are so heinous and so horrible that no other punishment can compare. Executing those that are proven guilty keeps them forever being in the public streets again, where they can harm another person. Governor Huckabee states that the death penalty is a warning to others that some crimes are beyond any other capacity to fix. This shows that the death penalty poses a threat to those that may commit a crime worthy of a death sentence. Mill also claims that the death penalty is more humane than life in prison because a criminal isn't required to live in a, quote, living tomb any longer. Execution of criminals also allows citizens to feel more safe and have the knowledge that their government is keeping criminals off the streets. Execution eliminates the chance for another innocent person to be hurt, and it also provides a reason for possible criminals to hesitate before they commit a crime. Yet, those that are against the death penalty worry about the falsely convicted, revenge, and the humanity of the extreme punishment. As technology expands, there are plenty of chances for overlooked evidence to be found later on. In fact, it has been recorded that 1 in every 7 people that are sentenced to death are later proven innocent by evidence that was overlooked. Danny Glover shares his idea of human revenge. He shares that we are so into revenge that if somebody is murdered, whether someone is correctly or incorrectly proven guilty, they should die also. Glover also shares that the time spent on death row is long, lonely, and inhumane. In fact, Time magazine backs him up by saying that a person usually waits on death row for at least 20 years, and of each day, they spend 23 hours in their lonely prison cell. One can argue that this is no different than spending life in prison, when in fact it is. It's simply the difference is that someone on death row is awaiting a time period where they know they will be executed. Unlike the person who in jail for life is sitting there living his life in jail because that is his punishment, not awaiting a certain date to die. Gary Graham was convicted of a murder by a shaky testimony from an eyewitness and was sentenced to death. While sitting on death row, new evidence was found that proved him innocent, but that new evidence was not listened to. There are many other cases like this that have happened in the world. Along with the shakiness of evidence, we can also take a look at the financial costs of execution. Former Chief Justice Gerald Cogan stated that in 1998, it cost Florida taxpayers $3.2 million to execute a single person, where it only cost $600,000 to keep that person in jail. Today, if Florida was to eliminate the death sentence, Florida would save $51 million. Despite the many cases against the death penalty, there are extreme cases where capital punishment is necessary. These cases include genocide, like the Holocaust, and terrorism, like September 11th. Failing to sentence these criminals to death shows acceptance of similar acts committed out of hatred. In these situations, it is important to stand up for justice and sentence the guilty to death. This is not only rids the world of that one murderer, but sets an example for others with similar ideas and prevents them from committing crimes. Considering the pros and cons of capital punishment, a common ground can be found between the differences of opinion. As a society, we must stand for justice, but not forget about human dignity. Both sides can agree that in cases where there is missing evidence or unclear testimony, the death penalty should not be issued. The The idea that the death penalty should be used in extreme cases, such as mass murders or terrorist acts, is justified in the reason of protection of the people and show the intolerance of such hatred acts. With all opinions taken into consideration, the best solution would be to allow the sentencing of the death penalty in extreme cases where evidence undoubtedly proves the accused guilty.